James Williams, SoCal News Group.
Hey, Justin, how you doing?
Doing good, James. How are you?
I'm doing good, doing good. Can you talk to me about Greg Dulcich and what obviously he's, a top option in the receiving game for you, but can you tell me about how important he is as a blocker for you guys on offense?
Well, very. I mean, if you can have tight ends on the field and they can spread them out and be a vertical threat or be a pass threat, and the same personnel grouping, you get them tighter into the box and able to block. That's for all tight ends, and Greg's done a really good job of every year just taking a little bit bigger chunk of everything he can do in the throw game and the run game, blocking. But yeah, schematically, if a defense is trying to match personnel with a nickel defense or an odd defense or something like that, if you can have a guy that can kind of give you both tools, then that's really advantageous for the offense. So love what he's doing, working hard. And like I said, when we're in a run fit drill versus a pass pro drill or release drill, he's working and trying to get his craft a little better. So we like that.
What improvements or what has this progression been like from last year to this year? Has there been any significant changes in his size or just what you've seen?
I think he's working nothing major. He's in the weight room. We had a full year. I mean, last year, obviously, with the whole world, right? It was different. Okay.
Right.
So you're going to get stronger when you're lifting weights and you're under the bar and got a bunch of cookies on the rack versus kettlebells and body weight lunges, right? So I think just having a full year in the weight room, strength's back up. But for any guy, the veteran guys, they continue to grow, like the game slows down, right? So you play faster without getting incrementally faster because mentally the picture cleans up for you and you can just block out all the noise and do exactly what you have to do. And so I think for any veteran guy and for Greg, because it's important to him, that helps him play more powerful and faster, even though there's not a huge jump in all those numbers maybe on the weight chart.
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Absolutely.
Tracy Pearson, Bruin Report.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Doing good, Trace. How are you?
Good. Talk a little bit about the continuity you have on this offensive line. You have everyone returning. Have you ever experienced anything like that? How that helped you in spring because you didn't necessarily have to start from square one, where that puts you now in the development and the cohesion of the line? Talk a little bit about that. Yeah,
I think, I talked a little bit about in the spring, I think, where you still start from square one and you build that foundation, but how high can you build with veteran guys is what it is, right? So you're starting at day one, you have your base installation, your base plays, you do those things. You're always going to start there, Tracy. You know what I mean? Now, a veteran group, a more experienced group, continuity, whatever adjectives you want to throw in there, then yes, that will allow you to run a base inside zone play. But hey, this time let's try it with this wrinkle, or let's try it with this scheme or this technique. So you're not changing the scheme, but maybe you're adding a different tool to the toolbox. That's what it allows with veteran guys. But you can't just assume like, oh yeah, we got that and we got that. You don't ever got it. You got to always keep working it. You got to keep polishing the tools. You got to keep oiling them up. So when you pull them out of the toolbox, they're ready to go. And so with a veteran line, with a bunch of guys that way, and just our numbers. I mean, to be able to run with a full 3 deep, really probably since the first time we've been here, that's exciting because you can get real reps. You can get real reps for a younger group, and then the younger group can watch 3 full groups go through and learn and have teachable reps or teachable moments on tape where we might not have had in the past.
How different is it? I think when you got here, you had maybe 10 scholarship offensive linemen. Now I think you have 17, something like that. What does that do in terms of your practices, just and how does, I know you're not going to say you're satisfied with that, but when you started here, you had a big task ahead of you, and it looks like you've accomplished a lot of what you wanted to do through recruiting.
Yeah, well, we tried to build it, through the vision of top down with Chip and recruit the right kids and bring in the right players. And well, whatever we inherited, we take and you coach them really hard, right? And the guys that want to be here and the guys that stay, then they buy in and they go. As you grow then and you build those classes, in recruiting, you got to make sure you're recruiting the right guys that fit what we're trying to do, right? And so for us, that's what I love about the room more than anything is they're all my guys, right? I mean, tell them that recruiting, when you recruit, preferred walk-ons, like you get in the room, you're my guy. I own you, right? So you've got all of me if you give me all of you, okay? And so that amongst anything else is the best because now you're sitting and looking in a room of everybody that you're fully vested in and they're fully vested in you. Now the numbers thing, like I said, that really gets the reps where we can go in 2 groups and do pass rush. So we can have a group here and a group here. You get more reps. You get to watch more reps. So the kids are learning more in meetings, right? As opposed to being worn out. And I only have 7 guys to finish the practice. So the right tackle's taking the 1s and the 2s and the look squad. By the end of practice and early on, he's hanging on. So now what are you getting, Trace? You know what I mean? You're getting a guy that's getting through and taking a rep as opposed to using the rep for what it's scripted for or the team periods for. So just the sheer numbers of that. And like I said, being really, those kids be invested both ways with us and them and us. Now you can coach them, you can grind them, you can push them, poke them and prod them when they need it. And you can hug them and love them and give them a squeeze around the neck when they need that too.
Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Tony Siracusa from Last Word.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Doing well, Tony, yourself?
Doing well, thanks, Coach. And I want to talk specifically about Sam Marazzo. Now, he missed most of spring, if not all of spring. Talk about the importance, though, of him being healthy, assuming he is fully healthy again, and having your center back, kind of the quarterback, if you will, of that offensive line. What does that mean to you?
Well, I mean, it's just the same voice and the same thing going through. So the guys hear it from the fit, right? The quarterback seeing where we ID, and then everything gets started from there. You know, but just Sam individually, it's good just to have some. He's one of those kids we just talked about, you know, that I talked about with Tracy. That guy was here when we got here and was a young kid with the immature body and unsure about how playing, and he's busted his butt, and you know, now he's starting center at UCLA, right? So amongst anything else, just loving watching a guy out there that really earned it and worked for it and goes for it, right? And then schematically, yeah, that helps. You know, quarterback of the offensive line, like everybody's got their own job, but he's the catalyst to get everybody going and their technique and those things. And so that's great to have a guy too that's experienced, and he's, you know, same thing we talked about. You'll start with the base look there, but then he can roll through that Rolodex and work it. Well, there's the backer, but there's the safety, but here's this. Hey, I need to do this because he's got those. He's banked those reps now, you know, and so that's a huge benefit for everybody up front, the quarterbacks, the backs, the tight ends, because we're all tied into that.
Now, the other day, Sean Ryan told us that there is a comfort factor that gets built in with the familiarity of the guy on your right or the guy on your left, and you know what he's doing and you know what the expectations are. Talk about that a little bit with the offensive line and how that factors into being able to pull off your schemes and your execution.
Yeah, well, it comes down to one word, really, to what he's talking about. And I'm glad he said that. It means they're listening a lot. But our thing's been about accountability, Tony. And accountability equals ownership, right? And so that's when you're accountable to the guy to your right, you're taking ownership in your job. I don't have to worry then about, well, is that guy going to do his job? I got to do my part and take ownership in mine because I know he's going to do that, right? And so, yes, with a veteran group, with guys that have played a lot, when they've played next to each other, then yeah, it's the same thing we talked about, I think, with Greg a little bit. The game will slow down, right? You're not worrisome about everything that can happen. You're just worried about what you got to do. And then you get that done because you know the guys next to you is doing that, whether it be for Shawnee, a tight end outside of him, a guard inside of him, you know, any types of those things. That's what he's talking about, right? And that's, like I said, that's good because that means that they're absorbing and taking what we're talking about, because that's been a huge message for us this fall so far. It's just that, you know, a lot of cliche words and things get thrown out. So we diagnose, like, what is accountability? It's ownership, and you control that, right? Not the coaches, not the defensive scheme or the offensive scheme. You own your task at hand on that play. And if you keep it that simple, then you'll be able to function at a high level.
Great. Thanks, Coach.
Mm-hmm.
Let's go to Sam Connon from SI.
Hey, Coach, how you doing?
Good, Sam. How are you?
Good, thanks. So one of the drills that we saw in the early part of practice today was the running backs doing some blocking against the linebackers. And two of the guys that stood out the most seemed like Zach Charbonnet, Britton Brown, being those big physical backs. What do those two guys specifically bring to the table, and how beneficial is it to have those two big guys in the backfield to running your offense?
I haven't seen that drill yet because I get to watch on film, though. So you're saying we did all right there, Sam? It was pretty good for the offense?
They looked all right.
Okay. All right. Yeah, I think, yeah, big backs, strong backs, smart backs. And every time you guys get me now, you're probably like, he just says the same stuff. You get tired of it. So I apologize for that. But like, this is the accountability part for those guys too. right? They're taking ownership in what their role is, right? Now, if you get backs that are able to block and run and catch, then you're getting more 3-down backs. Yeah, well, you love to have those guys, and those guys can do that. We're not going to be targeted based off of who's in the backfield, and that's that whole room. I mean, you could go down the whole list right now of all of Deshaun's guys. We don't just pigeonhole guys into certain things. You're going to see them all, and they're all going to be asked to do those things, especially in fall camp right now, right? So you get into game plan mode, or you get more into the season, you might fine tune a couple of things for other guys, but right now they all need to pass pro that way. They all need to pass pro in third down period. Then they all need to run the ball under center when we're in a short yardage or a goal line, or, whatever that may be. So really just trying to work and expand their skill sets, but those guys possess all of them. We're not going to be pigeonholed with any of our backs on the field, those two included.
All right, thanks, Coach.
Tukney to win from LA Times.
Hi, Coach. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. Good to see you. So to follow up a little bit on Sam Raza, I mean, like you mentioned, he was one of the few guys who was already here when you got here, and he walked on at UCLA. So was there anything early on in the process that you identified as something promising that you saw that could help him turn into a starting center at UCLA?
Yeah, he gets it pretty quick. Everybody learns differently, right? But with Sam, you could say it to him, you could see him process it, and then he'll write the picture down, or he'll take the note, and he digests things pretty quick. So early on with him, going through all of our scheme and stuff, he was a guy where he'd hear it once or maybe twice, and then he was pretty locked in with it. And so he's built a really good book of work because he's been here from the beginning. So he's a guy where I can look in the meeting room now and say, hey, remember when we were playing Colorado, for example, yada, 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 and we had to get to this check. Oh yeah, that's right, because of this, coach, right? Exactly. So the recall for him is bigger than most of those guys, and those other guys are building that. But for him early on, you just saw like he got it, and what's it, like everything, what we needed the center to do, the understanding. And he just physically worked really, really hard to match that so he could get on the field.
And what do you want how do you want the offensive line to kind of set the tone for this offense? You guys have so many guys back on that position group specifically, and a lot of teams say that they want their lines to kind of win them the game. So for you on the offensive side, what kind of tone do you want your offensive line to set for this team?
We just need to be felt physically, and we need to be felt emotionally, but it doesn't mean we have to be loud. We don't have to be hooping and hollering and those things, but any great offensive line unit and the ones that you're around, there's a presence there, right? So that's what I mean by you need to be felt. You can chirp and talk and hoot and holler all you want, but at the end of the day, if it's 3rd and 2, you really need to be able to walk up, and the G needs to know we're running the ball right here, and you do it. And your running back lines up. So as we talked, I think Tony, we were talking earlier about Sean Ryan and this. You got 5 guys in front of you, or 6 or 7, or how many ever guys are in the game, right? With the tight ends and the wings and whatever. They need to look up and be like, all right, I got it, because they got it. It's a feeling of and a presence more than statistic. The stat, we need to win. But it's the presence and the feeling of just feeling the line in front of you. That's what we really want.
Thanks.
All right, we got time for a couple more. Let's go to James and then finish up with Tracy.
Hey, Justin, just another question for you. I know you spent some time at Boston College, and you may have crossed paths with AD Martin Jarman back in 2017. But what have you seen from him here at UCLA, just as a leader and kind of running the athletic department?
Well, it's when Martin was coming, a lot of people asked about that. Martin and I just crossed a little bit, but I think the biggest thing with Martin is he's all about the student athletes, right? So that's what I felt when I was there. You get here, like people will say that and all those things, but with Martin, you get a picture of it. He's at all the events. He likes to be around and cheering on the kids. He likes to ask what they need and try to get those things for the kids. Like, he is a student athlete driven guy, right? And I know there's so many hats those admin people that they wear that I'm not smart enough to get into, but that's the one thing, the presence of Martin, as you see when he's around, like there's enthusiasm, there's excitement, and he's genuinely looking at it through the lenses of the kids to try to get the things that they need, is what I can say about Martin.
Tracy, go ahead.
Hey, Coach, we haven't been able to look at some of your younger guys. So if you could maybe just give us an assessment of how some of the younger guys on the offensive line are doing. Like someone like Bruno Fina, when he came in, it looks like he's gained about 50 pounds already and looks like he's doing pretty well. So not just the guys who came in this year right now, but the younger guys from last couple of years too.
Yeah, any younger guys, it's growing pains, right? It's painful, but it's growth. And they're all fitting right in that category. You know, like you said, like Bruno's put on a bunch of weight, and he's able now to play with a little bit more mass behind his pads and some strength. Patrick Selna transformed his body and is trying to get that, you know, still working on that because they're just young guys, right? The same thing, I think you were the question before, like they didn't get to do that last year like anybody else because of all the restrictions we had, right? So those two guys from last year, the 4 young guys this year, it's a roller coaster ride, like every freshman. You show up, you do something great, you feel good, and then all of a sudden there's another install, and you're like, oh crap, what's this? And paralysis by analysis. But ball's really important to them. They all love it. They love being around the guys. They love competing. So I'm happy with all those young guys, and everybody will end up on the path where they're supposed to, right? When do they get on the field? How soon? How quick? There's a bunch of factors that go into that. But we're very happy with all the young guys so far through camp, and then specifically those young guys you're talking about up front. I'm happy with where they're going, and we're growing, right? And as I said, it's growing pain, so it's painful sometimes for everybody, coach included, but we're growing.
All right, let's go to Rick Kimbrell from Brew and Blitz for one last question.
Hi, Coach. Finally, you're not having to rebuild from scratch. And you said something pretty interesting here, Coach, about presence. How do you develop presence?
You got to show it to them, right? It's a clip, and it's, you know, as we talk, if it's 3rd and short, Rick, and we're at the Rose Bowl, if you really have presence, then Zoe Rose Frye, my 9-year-old daughter, needs to be sitting up in her seat saying, they're going to run the ball right there, the same as the D coordinator on the other side and the same as everybody in the stadium. And we don't care. We just do it. We get the job done. You know, and so you show them the positives when that happens. If you're in a structured situation or something happens, and then you can say, look what happened when you let your technique take you home, right? There's no magic potion. There's no, oh, we got to guess right. If you just go do your job and you do it at a high level, this is what happens. That builds a little bit of, you know, swag. I won't say I'm bad with adjectives, right? But the swag, the belief, the whatever it is. And then at that point, it's not like, yeah, look what we did. It's like, oh, this is the way. This is how we do. So that's how you build that, right? Because it's like there's no drill for it. I wish there was, right? But there's no individual drill or there's no sled drill. So it's just a showing them of what happens, when it happened, and then why it happened. And it's not magical, and it's not, you know, cosmic. It's just that's what happens when you do your job and you do it at a high level. Right? So, you guys still hear me? The thing went by there in the background. Everybody good there? Yeah. Before you cut us off too, I just want to say too, I know Coach Corey lost her dad a few days ago, so I want to put that on a record that she's over there across the seas, you know, kicking ass with the under-19 team. But kind of alluded with Martin and those guys. That's why this place here. I mean, we got the UCLA logo behind us. That's why this place is elite, because we have people like her, right? Big loss for her and going through that, and for her to keep pushing those girls and developing young women and strong, powerful young women and all the things she talks about. Being able to watch her coach and being here, like, you don't know why this place is UCLA. Like, it's her, right? So Corey, if you're watching or she gets this, we love you. We're sending our prayers to you. Keep kicking ass over there, and then we'll see you when you get back in Westwood. Okay.
All right, great. Thanks for your time, Coach.
Thanks, guys.